A man wrapped up his work on a Friday afternoon and instead of heading straight home, opted to spend the entire weekend on a hunting trip with his friends, using up all the money he had earned. When he finally returned home on Sunday evening, his very upset wife was waiting for him. She scolded him nonstop for almost 2 hours about his irresponsible behavior over the weekend. After she had said all she could, she paused and said, "Imagine how you'd feel if you couldn't see me for 2 or maybe even 3 days." He thought for a moment and then replied, "I think I'd be okay with that." So Monday passed, and he didn't catch a glimpse of his wife. Tuesday and Wednesday rolled by with the same results. By Thursday, the swelling around his eyes had reduced a bit, and he could just about see her from the corner of his left eye. An elderly gentleman is savoring his meal in a diner when 3 rough motorbike riders approach him. They tease him about his age, and then one of them puts out his cigarette in the elderly man's plate. Another one spits in the elderly man's drink, and the third one tosses the elderly man's meal onto the floor. Without a word, the elderly man stands and exits the diner. One of the motorbike riders comments to the server, "It wasn't very brave, was he?" The server replies, "Not much of a truck driver either." Puzzled, they ask why, and she responds, "He just ran over 3 motorbikes with his truck." 3 men met their fate and were greeted by Satan at the gates of hell. "Welcome, you sinners," Satan declared. "Here in hell, your rank and your mode of transportation are based on your experiences with women." He turned to the first man and inquired, "How many women have you slept with?" The man pondered and replied, "I think it must have been 2. My first, a longtime girlfriend with whom I spent almost 20 years, and then my wife for the remaining 20 years of my life." Satan looked unimpressed and said, "Boring. Here's your pair of roller skates." The man took off with his roller skates. Satan then turned to the second man, asking, "How many women have you slept with?" The second man proudly answered, "Well, I was known as a ladies' man. I have been with 5 women." Satan chuckled. "That's nothing. Here's a bicycle for you." The man accepted his new mode of transportation. Finally, Satan approached the last man and questioned, "How many women have you slept with?" The man hesitated and admitted, "I wasn't a big ladies' man, but when I was younger I took part in an orgy and had a good 20 women that time. Later, it was only my wife for the rest of my life." After careful consideration, Satan said, "Well, that still counts up to 21. Here's a scooter for you." A couple of weeks later, the 3 men reconvened, and they noticed the third man was crying. Curious, they asked, "What happened to you? You at least got a scooter, so you should be happy." The man replied, "I know," and continued, "But I just saw my wife driving a Rolls Royce." A newlywed couple experiencing their first night together faced the bride's concerns about intimacy due to the apprehension of potential discomfort. In an effort to ease her worries, the groom came up with a plan. He reassured her, saying, "To make sure you're not scared, I'm going to step outside and slowly show it to you. Through the door. There's no need to worry." With that, he exited the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Cautiously, he placed a small part of himself through the opening and gently asked, "Is this frightening to you?" She chuckled and responded, "No, not at all." Encouraged by her reaction, he pushed a bit more through the opening, inquiring, "How about now? Are you scared?" She replied with another giggle, "No, not at all." Feeling even more reassured, he revealed a bit more and asked once again, "And now does this scare you?" She maintained her laughter and responded, "No." Satisfied with her reactions, he humorously announced, "All right, you seem to be okay with it. I am coming up the stairs now." In a kingdom ruled by a cruel king with a penchant for arbitrary executions, a minister once offered misguided advice that led to his own peril. The king, fueled by rage, ordered the minister to be thrown to the ferocious guard dogs. In response, the minister, in a plea for mercy, reminded the king of his 10 years of loyal service. He begged for a reprieve, asking for 10 days before facing the fate with the dogs. The king, torn between curiosity and bloodlust, reluctantly agreed. During those 10 days, the minister took charge of caring for the guard dogs. He fed them, washed them, and provided comfort in ways unimaginable. When the time came for the execution, the king was astounded by what he witnessed. The once ferocious dogs were now wagging their tails, playing with the minister, and even licking his feet. The king, puzzled, demanded an explanation. "What happened to my vicious dogs?" The minister calmly replied, "I served these dogs for only 10 days, and they remembered my kindness. I served you for 10 years, and you forgot everything after my first mistake." It dawned on the king that he had made a grave error. In an attempt to rectify his mistake, the next day he replaced the dogs with crocodiles. After an incredibly demanding day, a lawyer returned home late, having exerted great effort to prevent a client's execution. Despite his attempts to secure clemency from the governor at the last moment, it proved unsuccessful, leaving him exhausted and disheartened. Upon entering his house, his wife immediately launched into a litany of complaints about his late arrival, the cold dinner, and her refusal to warm it up. Too fatigued to engage in their usual arguments, the lawyer opted for a glass of whiskey and sought solace in a lengthy, warm bath. As he ascended the stairs, his wife continued with her sarcastic remarks. During his bath, the telephone rang. His wife answered, and was surprised to learn that the lawyer's client, James Wright, had been granted clemency. The execution had been halted, bringing a positive turn of events for the condemned man. Realizing that her husband had indeed faced a trying day, the wife decided to share the good news and hopefully uplift his spirits. Opening the bathroom door, she discovered her husband, sans clothing, bending down to dry his legs and feet. In response to her announcement about dinner, he turned around exasperatedly and exclaimed, "For the love of God, woman, can it wait?" A woman walks into a tackle shop to purchase a rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. Unsure of which one to choose, she selects one and approaches the counter, where she notices a cashier wearing dark shades. Politely she inquires, "Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me anything about this rod and reel?" The cashier responds, "Ma'am, I'm completely blind, but if you drop it on the counter, I can tell you everything from the sound it makes." Although skeptical, the woman drops it on the counter. The cashier confidently states, "That's a 6-foot Shakespeare graphite rod with a Zebco 404 reel and 10 lb test line. It's a good all-around combination, and it's on sale this week for only $20. Impressed, the woman decides to make the purchase. As she opens her purse, her credit card falls on the floor. The cashier remarks, "Oh, that sounds like a MasterCard." While bending down to pick up her card, the woman accidentally farts. Initially embarrassed, she realizes the blind clerk couldn't identify the source of the sound. The cashier rings up the sale and says, "That'll be $34.50, please." Confused, the woman questions, "Didn't you tell me the rod and reel were on sale for $20? How did you get $34.50? The cashier explains, "Yes, the rod and reel are $20, but the duck call is $11, and the bear repellent is $3.50. A woman named Jane visited her doctor, expressing concerns about bone density issues, a lack of libido, and persistent mood swings. Trusting her doctor's belief in holistic health, he recommended testosterone therapy, highlighting its potential to enhance bone health, increase libido, and stabilize mood. Though initially skeptical, Jane decided to give the treatment a chance. After a few days, she felt a remarkable improvement in energy and mood. Eager to share her positive experience, she called her doctor. When he answered, Jane enthusiastically began, "Doctor, I must say I'm feeling so much better." The doctor, pleased with the feedback but curious about her initial hesitation, gently prompted, "However, is there a problem, Jane?" She hesitated before admitting, "Yes, there's been some unexpected hair growth." Concerned, yet trying to reassure her, the doctor explained, "That's normal, Jane. Testosterone can cause a bit more hair to grow." Curious, Jane inquired, "Where exactly is it growing?" After a moment of hesitation, she blurted out, "It's growing on my balls." A burglar entered a house, and as he was going about his business, he heard a soft voice saying, "Jesus is watching you." Initially dismissing it as his imagination, he continued searching the house. Once more he heard, "Jesus is watching you." Puzzled, he turned his flashlight toward the source of the voice and discovered a parrot inside a cage. He inquired if the parrot was the one speaking, and the parrot confirmed, "Yes." Curious, he asked the parrot for its name, to which the parrot responded, "Moses." Perplexed, the burglar couldn't help but wonder aloud, what kind of people would name their parrot Moses? The parrot, with a touch of humor, quipped, "The same kind of people who would name their pit bull Jesus."